bottom line.
Welcome to the Payments Podcast. I'm your host, Bottom Line Managing Editor Owen McDonald. The industry recently observed National Insider Threat Awareness Month, and we are now on the cusp of International Fraud Awareness Week. Why the intense focus? Because financial fraud demands constant vigilance. The fact is that insider fraud is causing great havoc, so we had no choice. We called in the CIA, sort of. We are truly excited to have with us Erin O'Loughlin, Senior Director of Training at the Association of Certified Financial Crime Specialists. Erin spent 10 years in CIA ops, and she understands cybercrime like a profiler. We couldn't ask for a better fraud expert. Erin O'Loughlin, welcome to the Payments Podcast.
Thank you so much for letting me be here.
We're so glad you could be. It's a real treat to have someone with your background on the show, Erin. Trained by the CIA, a frontline operative. I can only imagine and watch a lot of Netflix to sort of put myself there. But seriously, Erin, what parts of your training and experience translate directly to insider threat detection in banks and financial institutions? How has national intelligence training shaped your approach to financial fraud and risk?
Well, that's a really good question. So I appreciate that one. I can't fully say how the agency teaches us because, again, that's sources and methods. So I can't give you all the secret sauce. However, I can point your listeners to Hollywood. There are plenty of movies that do have hints, and about 10% of what we really did and what those operatives still do, which is being tuned in to the sources and the people that they're working with. It's an easy transfer to any company or any industry even to know how to be tuned into your employees and your coworkers. Basically doing what your parents taught you if you were raised in the type of home that they said pay attention or look people in the eye or compliment them on what they're wearing, those sorts of things to be nice in civil society. That's basically kind of what it was. And I know I come forth saying it's kind of boring, but it's a lot of basic realizing of other human behaviors. So picking up on out of the ordinary wealth someone's displaying or being in tune with a coworker's stress levels. Have they been acting withdrawn? Are they displaying outbursts of anger? Are they calling out sick a lot? Do they have a new love interest? Who is this love interest? Why? Recent divorce, recent split up. Lots of different things can happen in a person or a coworker or employee's life that you could know just to say, hey, happy marriage or happy new time in your life to experience that with them. It also helps to say, ooh, something's not right and out of the ordinary. And when I say your listeners can point to Hollywood, the one actual movie does come to mind. It's Avengers. No, I'm not saying that I learned how to be like Black Widow and do all the physical things that she could. Obviously not. There's a scene where she's talking to Loki, where he's caught. She asks him certain pinpointed questions, and he does not give himself away, but she instantly figured out what he was going after, what he wanted, what his motivation was. She turned around, said, thanks a lot, and she walks in. She used tradecraft to be able to get what she needed from that, and she picked up on his cues and what he didn't say. So that actually reminded me a lot of what you just asked about.
I love that. I love that. But then, you just raised a couple of interesting points. It's fair to wonder who actually counts as an insider threat today. Certainly, it includes employees, but what about contractors? What about vendors, privileged users, all of the above? And how has the risk surface changed with remote work and all of the third-party access I just mentioned? In fairness to you, that's two questions, but go ahead, Erin.
I'll give it to you. All right, so let's talk about that. Who actually counts as an insider? And that's a whole array, a group of people that wasn't there before, right? Before meaning what, 20, 30, 40 years ago? An insider is anyone now, anyways, that has trusted access to our systems or data that is employees, just what you mentioned, full-time employees, contractors, temps, interns even. I was a summer intern inside the agency when I was in college. So that meant I had a secret clearance. So I worked every summer and every Christmas where I picked up phones, answered phones for them. I ran papers all around, stuff like that, just getting used to things. Well, I had access to, I saw people's faces. I may have known their names, but I had a trust. They put a trust in me at a very young age. There's also vendors. Oh gosh, vendors are a big one here on this one. And because third-party vendor or third parties like vendors. So remote work, that's the second part of the question that you asked. It means the inside now lives on home networks and partner environments. And while I'm not literally a big, huge tech expert, I'm not at all. I'm more of a people expert and financial crime expert. The tech part of it fascinates me because I know enough just to be dangerous and say, hey, you guys should get more information or education over there. Remote work does mean that the inside now lives on home networks and partner environments. And they're with wider, often more persistent privileges. What does privileges mean? Meaning accesses to databases that do you still have them 2 years later after you don't need them? Because you've been working at home, maybe your IT department didn't know to take you off those privileges. Most incidents aren't malicious mole stories, meaning they actually went out to the Russians to try to give information to them and work clandestinely. No, incidents are not what we mostly see, especially when insider risk. They're compromised or careless accounts. So they sometimes belong to a vendor. That 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 careless access for a vendor can become an attacker's foothold. Meaning, if there is a person who's no longer at your company, but yet there's access, a common vulnerability exploit is still there, or access there through their email, and an attacker gets in through their email, they can get in through your database and they're in your company. But just simply because the IT department didn't know enough, I'm not saying they're negligent. It's just that it happens. They didn't realize this person left because it's remote work, that sort of thing.
And a moment ago, you said something interesting that you are more on the people side of it, and so I'm wondering. Tell us about early warning indicators that matter most, Erin, of all varieties. You have behavioral signals like the ones you were just sort of alluding to, unusual access patterns and things like that, data based signals like suspicious change requests. How do you separate real signals from noise without over surveilling staff?
That's a really good one. So I would honestly start with access anomalies. What does that mean? That means the privileged uses that are maybe outside the scope of a role. The off hours that you access these databases, these privileges, that's also a good one to look at. You've got repeated multi-factor authentication push denials for a particular access. That's going to be more than likely your first look and your first clue as to what's going on here. Who is this privilege tied to? Whose account is this? And you're going to start looking at the account. Who's the person? Okay, what's going on with this person? And you go down that kind of rabbit hole to say what's going on with them. Why are they doing the things they're doing? In financial institutions, you have know your customer, right? When you're looking at what is normal for your customer, why the spikes or withdrawals in cash or transactions or wires are coming in and out. Well, you're kind of doing the same thing with your own employees, but you're looking at their usage of their accesses to your servers, right? The server there in your company. Kind of doing the same thing, but almost in reverse. Then you're going to look at data movement spikes, meaning how many downloads there have been of certain bits of information, records that they've accessed, all those different things. So you're going to do that next. And then change signals, meaning are there sudden privilege escalations happening to certain databases and why? And then you're going to separate the signal from the noise. You're going to baseline your peer group and your system, meaning, well, why is this person or these groups of people getting these certain accesses? And to keep it privacy safe, you need to collect the minimum of what's happening and then escalate to your management to say, hey, are we looking at the rules the correct way? Then do we need to limit retention? And when do we put HR and legal oversight into the loop on this? And that's going to be the policies and procedures of your firm. And that's kind of the early indicators. Again, if you're finding more information based on all these three things that you're doing, then you need to look at the person as a whole. What do we know about them? Or maybe there are groups of people, a group of people. Maybe they're at a certain branch, say for the financial institution side of it. Is this all coming from one branch? Are there 4 people that are getting access to these things? Is there 1? So you got to ask those questions so that you make sure that you're not over surveilling. You need to find those types of pieces of evidence that are inside your firm first. Accesses is going to be your biggest key.
Wow, so it's very telling. It seems that training is a prime lever for banks and FIs here. If that is so, Erin, what does effective role specific training look like for frontline operations, for tech roles, for payments managers? What makes cybersecurity training stick? For example, When we spoke recently, you mentioned, and I quote, scenarios, simulations, and just in time nudges. What do you mean by that? And how do you measure its impact?
That's a multifaceted question. So I'm going to start with the role specific that you talked about, and then I'll say the sticking point, right? So with the role specific, you want to go frontline first. Well, obviously they're your frontline, right? They're your operations officers. You got to teach them the red flags and how to recognize those red flags and when to escalate. And how would they know that without training? Are you going to escalate simply just the suspicious activity in the cash transactions you're looking at for the customers outside of your bank? And how would people know? And how would, say, managers or your IT folks know how to escalate red flag recognition when you're looking at your own people? So that's all about training and frontline to say, my job is X. I'm being trained on X. Not my job is X. I'm being trained on A through F. So making sure that it's to the role of which you're in. And for managers, in terms of insider threat risk, particularly, I would honestly suggest running leadership courses. They can help instill a better understanding of a manager's team. And these leadership courses can be virtual or in person. I would suggest both. If you are a virtual company, at least try to get together a couple times a year. Again, that's a fiscal question. But if you are a virtual company, these meetings that you have and these types of courses that you can put together, make sure the cameras are on so you can see people's faces if they're in distress, if they're having a hard time, if they're happy, which is great. You want to see your people happy, right? And you're having these courses and you can get a better understanding of where they are in their personal life, how they're feeling, if there's anything you can do to help them coming from a human level. When you're helping them from a human level, you're also helping your firm to maybe on a very tangential level, maybe preventing an insider threat or risk because you've actually taken the time to care about someone. That goes a long way. Big time long way. So a lot of times, especially in the espionage world, there's several reasons why someone would sell secrets, trade secrets, either trade secrets from a company or secrets of your government.
Right.
And most of that is money. You want financial. A lot of that is revenge because you're unhappy and I missed that particular promotion. I can't believe that man or woman did that to me. They are angry, or there's a vulnerability inside their families, or they just want to be seen and recognized and heard and have a friend in that. Oh, and they get money on the side too. So what does that hurt? So there's lots of different reasons why you should be able to have a virtual or real touch point with your employees. And to make it stick, that's another thing you mentioned, the scenarios and the simulations, tabletop exercises, especially for the IT experts in the IT departments. There's groups called pen testers, penetration testers, and they fascinate me because they actually try to break the systems. And that is so cool to me. As a non-tech person, I actually sat at Western Union in the San Francisco office with almost all the pen testers in the digital spaces. And I just tried to sit there and listen to them. They were saying things like, I'm going to break this, or how did you move this? And there's so many tech words that I didn't understand, but I kept asking, but what are you actually saying? And they said, oh, we're just trying to break the system to figure out how to protect it. If you're a pen tester, you're breaking things and you're conducting a war game all day, every day. So tabletop exercises for folks, both leadership courses, you can have tabletop exercises. You can do a choose your own incident drill. A lot of what the IT folks do, they'll have drills tied to your systems to say, what if this happens? What if that happens? Then you'll have a playbook on how to actually work to prevent it if it actually does happen in real life. And the just-in-time nudges, those are tool prompts when someone shares wide or grants long-lived access or downloads at volume, meaning it's kind of like, hey, are you using this anymore? Are you using that anymore? You've had access to this for a while. Let's figure out what's going on here. Sort of a nudge on that one. And refresh. You can either do these in micro drills, say monthly or weekly, depending on what you need to do. It all is tailored to your firm, to your role, to the policies and procedures of your particular company. And not annual marathons, but maybe that's what your company needs. You need an annual quote marathon to refresh your training on this. But more than likely, you're going to need more than that. It's the probably monthly micro drills or quarterly trainings to see, hey, I got to remember insider threat is real, and my colleague next to me, the frontline teller, is really acting weird, and I don't understand. I just think maybe they're going through a lot. Oh, I just realized they're having such a financial distress because of a gambling addiction. Oh my gosh, how do I help them as a human you could also be helping them in the firm and helping them to avoid possible jail time for being arrested for insider fraud, embezzlement, that sort of thing. So it goes a long way in baselining and recognizing your colleagues, having your managers recognizing and seeing and truly understanding and knowing their employees, and all of the tech footprints that are left inside a firm to be able to read those, bring them up, do that first, and then say, okay, gosh, we've really fallen behind on noticing and knowing what our people are going through because we can see it here, it's laid out.
If you see something, say something. Ringing in my head. Last question, and this is a hypothetical. If a mid-sized bank wants to reduce insider risk in the next 30 days, Erin, what are the top 3 actions you'd advise them to take?
Well, you actually took the words out of my mouth. See something, say something. That was that's actually running in my head now. Or speak up fast. You could run a campaign of that. Say we're going to do a 30-day campaign of see something, say something, speak up fast. Culture of compliance. That's another thing you can throw out there for these catchy terms for your employees to understand. You can have manager scripts daily to have managers train their employees to say, hey, this happened. We need to understand how it happened and not make it happen again. Is a campaign, as you can call it one. You can have different things, more phishing tests from the IT department to the employees to say, as a reminder, and test them and see if they keep clicking on things. Depending on the situation, you can tailor these 30-day campaigns to whatever the situation was, or you want to make it broader and say, this incident happened. We need to train them on all incidents. It's up to you. You can also, again, I talked earlier about the standing privileges of certain databases. Again, do that baseline quick as you're trying to patch the vulnerability and realize the attack or realize the person you just caught did do certain things and took money and embezzled and were arrested. Anything that you've got a team that acts against that to say, hey, we have to react to this. Then you should also have a group of people who go, great, start from the beginning. What's the baseline? What do we know? How do we continue to teach our folks that this should not happen in the future? And those are the biggest things I can think of.
Okay. Ponemon Institute found that insider fraud alone will cost companies $17.4 million on average in 2025. But that figure drops dramatically if fraud is discovered within the first 30 days. To sum up, payments need better protection. As we learned from our amazing guest, Erin O'Loughlin, Senior Director of Training at the Association of Certified Financial Crime Specialists. To our audience, the smartest people in B2B payments, thanks for listening. Hit subscribe. Catch us again on your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Bye for now.
Podcast from Bottom Line.